Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining the webinar today. We have with us today Mr. Ciby. He's an alumnus of PGP 1983 batch. His profile is like he has a 30 years of wide-ranging experience in operations management, strategic planning, and quality. He has led the quality function in both manufacturing and service sectors in leading companies. And he's currently Director and Technical Advisor, American Society of Quality India, and he's responsible for various strategic initiatives. And he has earlier been the Vice President of Business Excellence for Escorts Limited, where he had led initiatives for process excellence and performance improvement, Senior Director of Continuous Improvement Worldwide for Convergys Corporation, where he led Six Sigma implementation and Vice President of Institute of Quality Limited. And he has mentored hundreds of improvement projects using problem-solving techniques and is a Six Sigma black belt. And he was also conferred the Summit Award at Convergys for outstanding contributions to the company. And so he has been an entrepreneur twice and has experience of starting up new ventures in greenfield areas. And he's passionate about advocate of quality, and he believes that the application of the concepts of quality will greatly impact and enhance efficiencies in the Indian economy, and especially particularly for the capacity for Make in India. And yeah, so he's an alumnus for IIT Delhi as well. And as you know, the topic of today's session is business and people improvement through Lean Six Sigma. And the flow of the event is we'll have a talk around 45 minutes, and you can ask the questions in the chat window at the end of the session. And if any of you have any thing to share or anything, please let me know in the chat window. I can unmute you and you can ask the questions, or any if you want to share something also you can do. Yeah. Once again, a warm welcome to Mr. Ciby James. Yeah, over to you, sir. You can take over. Yeah.
Thanks, Sushma. Thanks for the introductions, and very happy to be here on this IIM Bangalore platform, the alumni platform, and to talk about business and people improvement through Lean Six Sigma. Now, improvement and betterment has been a constant search for men always, and here in this quality management body of knowledge, and particularly in Lean Six Sigma, there are various tools and techniques which have proven themselves over the years in many organizations, and still wait to be discovered by many others. Now, we've just been through or are still going through a major pandemic, and if you look at the history of man, it's been at times of calamity that which have been major inflection points when people have sort of sat back and reflected on what they have and on the tools and techniques that they have, which they are using or not using. And these calamitous points, in a sense, have been the points when major changes happened. And I think this is again a point of time to look at tools like quality management and Lean Six Sigma. And the fact is that these are not enough used. While there are many professionals out there and many senior leaders of industry who have successfully employed these tools and techniques, still many others are there who do not believe in them or do not know enough about it to be able to leverage these tools. And therefore, there is a huge gap to be filled. My basic premise here is that whether it is corporations, or whether it is government, or whether it is hospitals and public services, these tools have a lot to contribute. They are a true magic wand in the hands of the right people. They can bring about huge amount of improvement because they were actually designed and conceptualized as methods to bring about rapid change, rapid improvement. And so they have a role to play. And I'm hoping that, captains of industry, leaders everywhere, and I'm hoping that through this platform of the IIM Bangalore, which talks to people who are in good positions in organizations, this message continues to go across that there is much to be learned from and much to deploy in this body of knowledge. So I just want to, before I start, just talk about ASQ, the organization I represent. ASQ has been around since 1946, over 70 years. And people like Walter Schuhart, Joseph Juran, Deming, Crosby, all of these have been, leaders have been very instrumental in taking the quality movement forward. And they were instrumental also in leading ASQ at some point of time and putting this message across the world as to what this whole area can contribute. And here's a summary of some of the things that ASQ does. We are present in 140 countries, 200,000 plus certifications issued in various areas, 25,000 individuals we train every year, and we organize webinars, conferences, books and journals are published by us. We have communities everywhere, in every state across the US. In India, we have some 6 or 7 different communities in different cities. Similarly, across the world, there are quality communities which are in some way affiliated to ASQ and help to contribute and add to the message that ASQ brings to the world. And for those of you who are looking at, self-betterment, self-improvement, there are these certifications that ASQ offers. Around each certification, there is a full body of knowledge, and there would be a full handbook and examinations which can give you the certification. And a lot of work is done around these areas. And these are the 18 certifications, I think, where we have expertise in, which people can look at, including, as you can see, the Six Sigma Yellow Belt to Master Black Belt. So getting to the topic, what I'm saying is that quality management is akin to business management. Sometimes people think that quality management is about product quality or manufacturing quality or production quality, but it's really much more than that. It's about the quality of business itself. It's about the quality of management processes, which are really about the beliefs and the values that the organization and the people in the organization hold, and how they work together and how effectively they work together to deliver value to the customers, to their customers. And how do they do that effectively and efficiently? Really, quality management is about that, and Lean and Six Sigma are proven tools within that quality management area. And it's not just about any one aspect of business, such as manufacturing. It's about everything. So whether it is marketing or sales or finance or procurement or IT or any of the other functions in a business, all of them need and can benefit from quality management and quality tools and techniques. And the fact is that the organizations which are aware about all of this do employ them in every area. Even if I look at India itself, more than half, I think 60 to 70% of the people, of the individuals who come forward for training to us in Six Sigma and Lean are from service sector companies, and many of them are not from manufacturing or even from operations. Very recently, and I'm happy I can see on in the audience here as well, there are people from the medical field, doctors, and I'm very glad that the quality movement has spread and is spreading further to the non-manufacturing, non-operation, non-corporate areas. And there is a huge relevance which needs to be discovered, which is there for people to discover. The main message is that quality cannot be left to chance occurrences. Quality management really cannot be left to chance, because there are systematic approaches which have been developed. Science has been developed around this, and it's important to pick that up and run with it. And we need it. I mean, we are talking today about Atmanirbhar Bharat, which means building our own capabilities in manufacturing, in services. And in building these capabilities, quality management forms a certain cornerstone which is cannot be ignored, is essential, and therefore even in terms of building our own capabilities, making this a foundation block of that capability building that we will do is essential to the way going forward. So the question has always been there: does quality really pay? I mean, does quality lead to profitability of an organization? Because organizations are set up, for instance, business organizations are set up for profitability. And I just want to recall this particular study. This was a study that commenced in 1960s at General Electric, I think. And what they did was they followed a certain group of companies, some 450 companies, some 3,000 business units, over a long period, much over 15 years. It was the study was then taken over by Harvard University for a few years, then by the Strategic Planning Institute, and then by the Marketing Sciences Institute. And one of the seminal findings of this study was, when it came out, I think early 1980s or thereabouts, that one of the most important factors in the business profitability of organizations is the quality. And that was a realization and a finding which really got people to sit up and notice about the primacy of quality management. And very recently, together with Forbes, ASQ had got together and conducted a study. I think surveyed over around 1,900 senior executives of multinational corporations around the world and quality professionals, and came out with a report, The Rising Economic Power of Quality. Essentially to bring again this relationship very clearly out, that quality or pursuing quality is akin to pursuing profitability in an organization, or which is really fulfilling the purpose of or a big part of the purpose of any corporation. And the same study came out with what are the big concerns, the ongoing concerns which are there in organizations today. And you can see here 54% of the respondents felt that employee competence needed to be built for our future needs in many areas. So building up that and building organizational capability through employee capability is a key part of how any organization prepares for the future. 53% felt that our processes are not rapid enough, fast enough, in with the times, outdated. So a lot of work needs to be done there. Data quality itself is a big problem. So making sure that we are able to capture the right data and we have the right sensors and systems for the purpose. And supplier management issues, that because all of us are linked together in a supply chain, dependent on other organizations as well, interdependent, and therefore ensuring that the entire supply chain is improving in quality are all key concerns that professionals and managers and leaders have today. And whenever we have a failure in quality, the non-quality of that incurs a cost, and we call that the cost of poor quality. And here we're saying that cost of poor quality, part of that is visible. So if you look at it, this is like the top of an iceberg, the visible part. And this is comprising items like waste, rejections, rework, inspection costs, warranty returns from customers. All of that is visible, and they constitute about 5% of sales in many organizations. It might vary here and there, but this is what roughly it constitutes. But the important part is that is only the visible part. Underlying that, below the water in a sense, is a big part of the iceberg, which are a whole lot of other costs. Each of them might not be significant, in themselves, but together they are far larger than the visible costs. And they're not accounted for or connected directly to the quality failures. They might be accounted in different heads within an organization. For instance, it may so happen that we were supposed to deliver a consignment on a Wednesday, and there was a delay. We were not able to do that until Friday, and so then we had to air freight the materials, and that was an additional air freight cost that was incurred. Now that goes into transportation costs. It doesn't go into quality costs, but it's there. And similarly, there are a whole lot of other costs as well. And when you compute all that together, that might be as much as 15 to 20% or more, which means that the overall costs because of poor quality in an organization are substantial. In many organizations, it can be 20%, 30%, and that's huge. And imagine a 1,000 crore company is incurring about 200 crores in terms of costs which could have been saved. That's unfortunate, and quality management provides you the methods to deal with it and save a good part of that resource which is otherwise going waste. So here I have a graphical presentation of that. If you look at any organization, you're making profits, but the operational costs comprise a large amount, which is 1 second. Yeah, the operational costs comprise a large element, which is what we call cost of poor quality. So if you look at today, because of the economic conditions, there has been a sales erosion all around. So profit has shrunk, but the COPQ, the cost of poor quality, remains the same. Now suppose we want to grow our business, we want to grow our profitability. There are two routes. One is that you can work very hard and double the entire sales turnover of the operation. And if you do that, of course, you'll grow profits, but at the same time, you're losing a lot more money. You're continuing the same waste, doing the same thing which you're doing now. But on the other hand, you can save that COPQ by doing things right the first time, by employing the tools and techniques of quality management, Lean and Six Sigma, and really improve the efficiencies and effectiveness of your organization. That money comes directly into profits. That waste which is saved comes directly into profits. And if you were to now start growing your organization and growing your sales, you would make a lot more money. So if you look at this graphic, it sort of very clearly illustrates the benefit of focusing first on strengthening our own capabilities and eliminating the waste which is otherwise present in any organization. And this again calls for all the tools and techniques of quality management. I want to spend some time about what is Six Sigma, because some of you might be well asking that question, what is Six Sigma? So I want to talk about that. So first, the case of DuPont. So DuPont commenced on the Six Sigma journey around the year 1999-2000. And at that point of time, they were one of the largest organizations in their space. They've been on the Fortune 500 list, I think, for 200 years. They were about $25 billion in terms of turnover at that point of time. But they were at a crossroads, because for the last 4 years, they just hadn't grown. They were at a plateau. And they were looking around for how can they, break through and bring about a transformation in their business. And their leader at that time, Chad Halliday, he looked around and he had heard about Six Sigma implementation in other organizations. And he said to himself that, look, this is the right method. And he went and talked to people who had already implemented it. And he took his leadership team along with him. And they decided to embrace this whole methodology. So they went about it very, very aggressively. And in their first year of Six Sigma deployment, they actually decided to save about $1 billion, which was almost 4% of their turnover. And they also figured that in order to bring about that kind of saving, they needed something like 3,000 Six Sigma black belt projects, which meant 3,000 people had to be trained. And in order to support those black belts, they needed people who were team members. They needed champions. Champions are senior leaders in the organization, So they appointed many champions. I mean, there were some 22 champions at the very corporate level, at the SBU level, and within each SBU there were champions, one for every 10 to 15 black belts. And all of these individuals were to dedicate a large percentage of that time to these to the deployment of Six Sigma and the review of such projects. So they made these projects integral to the business goals of the company. And as a result of the efforts that they put in, they were successful. And in the first 5 years, they saved almost $2.5 billion, apart from growing their product lines and coming out with various other innovations. Now, here's another glimpse of how they went about it. I just want to show that the total top management commitment that went into the DuPont success. So the entire top leadership went through programs to understand what is Six Sigma. Every business unit and so on put deployment champions into place. Every SBU put in champions into place. They had MBBs, one for every 10 to 20 BBs. BBs are black belts. And they had black belts, to do those 3,000 projects and green belts. So a huge amount of commitment and deployment and discipline, which led to the result that they got. Now, together with this business result, look at the impact on the employees. High potential employees were expected to serve as full-time Six Sigma black belts or MBBs or champions. And the organization viewed these roles as stepping stage to a better role. So an individual would become a green belt or a black belt, stay in that position for some 2 years or thereabouts, learn about change management and problem solving and database thinking, and then transition on to another business role. But this became a huge training ground to prepare people for other roles. Look at the case of Jack Welch, which was very well known. When Jack Welch took over the reins of General Electric, he decided, again, based on what he had learned about Six Sigma, he decided to make that the cornerstone of his entire business philosophy. And he said Six Sigma should be the DNA of the company. He wanted everybody to be trained in Six Sigma methods. And look at the results. Over $10 billion in the first 5 years of the Six Sigma initiatives, and GE have been documented in their annual reports. And again, they involved people across the board. Everybody learned about these tools and techniques. The Six Sigma, components, the language components such as DMAIC, Sigma level, and so on became part of the GE language. And GE built leaders who had those abilities of solving problems, carrying people along, etc. And the entire industry valued these people because they had sort of learned in the process of implementing their Six Sigma projects, proven themselves, got their internal certifications, and therefore had became the fodder for many other upcoming organizations to absorb into their management ranks. And it all started off at Motorola. So Six Sigma started at Motorola at a time when Motorola was going through a troubled phase. They were impacted by Japanese imports. Japanese pagers were coming into the country in the US, and the Motorola pagers were no match to them in terms of quality, in terms of price. And the entire organization was at, the design people were in conflict with the sales people. The sales guys were blaming the production guys, complaining that quality is bad. And at that time, Robert Galvin, who was the CEO of Motorola, put together a team of Bill Smith and Nikhil Harry to come out with a new approach. And they are the people who put together Six Sigma as an approach. And they were able to very rapidly transform the fortunes of the company in a couple of years. So much so that Motorola won the first Baldrige Award, which was a US government recognition for business transformation through quality. And the message immediately went to many other organizations. And you can see now that it's sort of spread all around the world, and different organizations have picked it up. The whole approach was around fighting variation. There is variation in almost every process. The whole question is that variation beyond the levels that you want? Can we understand what are the causes of this variation, and can we limit that? What are the tools and techniques to that? And Six Sigma brought in, apart from the basic quality tools, it brought in statistical tools and similar other tools and people-related tools of how to leverage domain knowledge and how to bring in process science knowledge in order to bring about improvement. So just taking a step back, I just want to put this question to you. Imagine that you are the selection team for the archers who are to represent our country in the national archery competition. And what you want out of the candidates you have is the performance on the right bottom. This is what you want. You want them all to hit the target, of course. But you have three candidates who shot as shown above to the left. So there's one candidate who's hit all his arrows or her arrows at one spot, but away from the target. There's another candidate who's hit somewhere around the board. So it's on the board, not really close to the target. And there's another candidate who's hit his arrows or her arrows around the target on the average at the target, but there's a certain variation between the different shots. So now, since you have to make a choice among these three candidates, whom will you choose? Whom will you choose among these three candidates? And very clearly, this is out because there is too much of variation, and in comparison to these two, this is worse off. This person is worse off. So the choice is really between, let's say, A and B. Top left and bottom left. And so when you put this question, some people might say top left and some people might say bottom left, but there's really only one answer. The right answer is that the top left is the right answer, because if somebody has hit the same spot again and again, it's a very unique ability. It's by chance you can never hit the same spot so many times. So this person has an ability. This person has far less ability. I mean, there's too much of variation between the various shots of this person. Again, to emphasize that it's variation which is far more difficult to achieve, and it is variation or the control of variation that really spells the ability of any process. So in Six Sigma, we seek to do that. And Six Sigma targets a performance level where you have only 3 defects per million, or 99.999% efficiency. And really, when this whole movement was conceptualized, there was a transition from thinking in terms of percentages to thinking in terms of per millionth, from percentages to millionth. And that was one of the big transformations which came in. And just the fact that, look, we can target and achieve performance levels such as just 3 defects per million became conceivable and sought after. And there is a methodology to improve that. There's a 5-step methodology which Six Sigma espouses. You have the DMAIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, and control for improving a given process. And then if you want to develop a new process or develop a new product, then you have the DMAIC, define customer requirements, understand everything that you can about it by collecting data and analyzing it, design that new product or service, and then validate whether you've got it or not, right? So there's a whole methodology and there are tools around it. And Six Sigma conceives of the process as a series of actions which is delivering an output of value to the customer. So you can see over here that the customers whom we seek to serve in any organization. The product or service coming from the organization is meant to serve the customer. So how do we do that? Through the process. The process comprises a series of steps, and they together deliver the output. And there are certain expectations out of this output by the customer. We call them CTQs. And these CTQs are a function of the factors which play on the process steps. We call them X's, X1, X2, X3, and the factors which are applicable to the inputs. So we say Y is a function of these factors. And really, Six Sigma looks at it scientifically and tries to understand which of these factors contributes the most to that Y, to the changes in Y. And if we can understand that relationship well enough, we can then understand what is it that needs to be controlled, so we can have an optimal output from the Y. And so what does it really seek to do? If you look at it, it's asking you to have a deeper understanding and insight into the processes that you manage. So again, the Six Sigma movement on quality management essentially is really driving people to say that to get into the depth of their processes, to understand the heart of it, what drives what, and what are the interrelationships between factors. And as a result of that deeper understanding, be able to coax out better performance from those systems. And there's a whole toolbox. I've got only some of the tools represented here. COPQ, process mapping. You have, the basic quality tools such as Pareto, root cause analysis. We have the lean tools like waste analysis. There are statistical tools like hypothesis tests and correlation with regression. And there are creative tools like six thinking hats and creative thinking, and so there are a whole lot of different tools and techniques coming to within that approach. But underlying all of that is a philosophy which believes in people. The two principal ideas are respect for people and continuous improvement. The possibility and the continuous possibility of continuous improvement are the mainstay of this philosophy. So a few words on lean. So just like in a sense, the Six Sigma represents the best of Western thinking, American thinking. You have the wisdom of the East coming from Japan through the lean philosophy. So here we have the lean approach, the lean principles sort of presented very quickly. So it says, first, step number one, understand what the customer wants, which is really the value that your process must create or produce. Secondly, once you do that, when you understand that, then you map the value stream. And what they mean by the value stream is the same as the process. Any process should be the value stream because the process is set up to create value. Now, in that process or value stream, find out what is value adding and what is not value adding, and try and eliminate what is not value adding. And further, lean has some great ideas about how to organize work. It says establish flow. In its conception, work must flow like a stream and never stop. If it stops anywhere, it becomes inventory. You don't want that. You want work to flow smoothly through the entire process within the organization and out to the customer. So how do you do that? Single piece flow. Henry Ford, in a sense, discovered a part of this when he set up the assembly line. So in the assembly line now, the product essentially flows, the work flows at a particular pace, and whatever work needs to be added, any value needs to be added, is done within units of time which are already pre-designed, and then it moves out from the assembly line into the warehouse and hopefully moves out immediately. That's the flow. So that's the kind of flow that Lean says, see if we can establish it everywhere. And where you can't do that, at least implement pull. So rather than some kind of centralized planning, which can lead to a lot of inventory buildup in an organization, think of decentralized work where people down the line have the authority to take decisions about whether they want a particular piece of material or not, whether they want some other function to supply them with something or not. So when you do that, the connection to work and the flexibility on the ground becomes far greater. So implementing pull, controlled inventories at different places from which functions can draw, rather than rigid planned operations where there's a discontinuity between what is planned and what is actually happening on the ground, leading to huge inventories. We don't want that. So implementing pull and continuously improving that, those are the basic principles of lean. And here is another example of what lean really believes in. If you look at most processes and you look at the activities involved in that process, so here is the kind of time that goes into making a beer can. Okay, so it starts off at the bauxite mine. Material is mined at the bauxite and cryolite and converted to aluminium. Then it gets into a cast aluminium ingot, and then gets into roll plate, and then to sheets, and finally into cans. And this whole process takes about 300 days. So if you were a new beer company and you were to place an order on this whole aluminum manufacturing unit to give us a new batch of cans, it might take 300 days to fulfill your order, because the first time you're making the order. But in these 300 days, what exactly is the value added time? Just 3 hours. Just 3 hours. All the rest of it is inventory, waiting time somewhere, transportation somewhere, all of which is not value added. So that is the potential to shift the what we call the lead time from order to delivery from something like 300 days to far less, because the actual value added is only 3 hours. So there's a whole toolkit again. Here's a toolbox of lean. There are tools around just in time, cellular organization of work, Kanban, Pokayoke, prevention of mistakes, batch size reduction, quick changeover, layout, visual management. So I don't want to get into all of that, but essentially many of these lean tools focus on how can we improve cycle time, how can we reduce waste, remove inventory, and essentially lean the entire organization and make it far more flexible. If you look at the same value stream or process, the entire focus is now different. It's on looking at the process and says, hey, what is value added, and can we maximize that? Can we look at the non-value adding activities and we eliminate that? That's the entire focus of lean. So you can see that these are two complementary streams of knowledge, and in a sense, when you put together, you're putting together the best of the East and West, if you will. So you can use these tools appropriately to the different situations that you might be faced with. So whether it is a variation kind of problem where you have a lot of data, or whether it is a cycle time related problem where you want to reduce cycle time, whether you are in a place where today there is a lot of inventory and you want to make it streamlined, apply lean tools. So it's a combination. So what we are seeing here is that these two bodies represent maybe different sets of tools, but for the same purpose, and we employ them, the most appropriate tool where we need it. So I just want to illustrate the experience of solving projects, solving problems through a couple of small examples, and they are very simple examples so that anybody can understand this. So here is a warehouse where there was a problem in terms of order fulfillment time. So order is received from customers. The warehouse has to pick up those orders from the various bins and then pack it and send it out. So this was taking too long. So they constituted a team to sort of solve this problem. The first thing that they did was make a project flow chart. So here you can see a project flow chart. In lean terms, it would have been called a value stream map. So here it is, they receive the order, pick the parts, move to inspection, check it, move to packing, pack, move to shipping, ship. So these are the steps involved. And then they said, okay, let's get some data together. So you have a check sheet to collect information about these process steps. How much time does it take? So they, created sheets, and somebody sat and observed as various orders were, completed, and they put it all together, and they realized that look, this is the breakup of time. And then you can see here that if you look at these different process steps, there are certain steps which take a lot of time, like picking part seems to take 19 minutes, packing part similarly take 18 minutes. So these would be the target of reduction of time. So here is a Pareto which represents the same thing. So picking first, and maybe if you look at picking, then hey, can we work on picking, and can we improve it? Is there a variation in the picking itself? So here is a data collected over for some 50 picking instances as to how much time is each operation taking, and a histogram has been created, or something like a histogram, and you can see that there's a lot amount of variation. So here is what is known as a multimodal histogram. In other words, there seem to be underlying several distributions. Looks like a certain set of items can be picked up in something like 8 to 9 minutes, but there are certain items which are taking far more time. So they sit together and then brainstorm. So they're bringing all their domain knowledge together. A team comprising the warehouse personnel as well as maybe the sales guys and the transportation guys all got together, and they already figured that the delay in completing the picking is because of multiple trips required for fulfilling certain orders. So they're brainstorming on that, and then they realize that among the ideas which they have put up together, and they then prioritize among these ideas, and they realize that look, it is the design of the push cart. The push cart is today too small so that it cannot accommodate certain kind of parts within the time available, as a result of which they have to go back and pick up those parts again. So it's about the dimensions of the push cart, so they redesign the push cart. And after the redesign, they now they now study the performance and compare it to the past. So here you can see the new performance, and you can see that based on a sample of 30 pickings that they did, the average performance has immediately come down from what it was 14 earlier to 13 now, which is a huge improvement. So very simply, using very simple tools, they've arrived at what is causing a particular problem, and they've come out with a solution that implements that change effectively. Oh, look at another case here. This is a discrete manufacturing unit. This is actually a fan manufacturing unit, and this actually belongs to one of the largest fan manufacturers in India. And they had, after many years of being in business, they had something like 12% assembly line rejection. And I mean, they had tried at various points of time to improve it, but somehow or the other, it didn't happen. And the personnel believe that, look, this is the way business is done, this is the way this particular process happens. And while we tried many things, we got back to base. So nothing much needs to be done about it. This is fine. Chalta hai was the belief. And you can see here, over a 12-month period, this is the average monthly rejection percentage, which is averaging around 12%. And then this team started working on figuring out what are the causes, what are the reasons. They had weekly group discussions to figure out what's happening. They looked at each of the possible causes. They dived into why those failures are happening. They did why analysis. They collected data, and they did various, they even did regression and correlation in one case. They did Shining techniques in another case. And step by step, they brought the failure rates down. And as of the end of some 6 months or 7 months, they were at 4.3%. And I can tell you that after this, they went down further to around 2.5%. Now, important thing to note is that now they can never go back again. So once they've improved to a certain level, now you can never justify having a 7% or an 8% or a 10% failure rate anymore, because it's been a established. It's been proved that it can be brought down to a far lower level, and they use that through systematic tools. And by different functions coming together, they realize that assembly line improvement required the stator line and the rotor line and the painter line people to collaborate together to solve the common problems they had. And when they came together and optimized their entire process right from beginning to the end, they then got the results that they wanted. So Six Sigma and Lean and quality management in a sense enables all that. The different functions of an organization coming together, maybe in cross-functional teams, to solve critical problems they have, which are holding them back, saving on costs which they are otherwise incurring. And all of this builds organizational capability. So to leverage this full body of knowledge, you need top management to understand and really value this and believe in it. And I can tell you that great leaders do understand that and have used Lean Six Sigma as the instrument of change in their organizations. And there is much more to be done, much more that can be done. And what is the kind of capability that it builds through the organization? The ability to solve problems, whatever the problem is. Understanding processes in depth and what is involved in understanding the process in depth. Analytical thinking, understanding root causes, data focus, the ability to sort of work with data, massage the data to come out with something different, data insights. Change management, the people side of it. How do you persuade people to support your ideas and to support you and work together with you in bringing about change successfully? How do you carry people along? How do you build that? What's in it for them? How do you work effectively in a team? How do you provide team leadership as a project leader, as a black belt, or as a green belt? How do you lead and make a team successful? All of these are the experiences that build potential future leaders. And those organizations which go down this path essentially build long-term capability for themselves, because that capability resides in their people and can continue to give them results for many years beyond that. So I want to sort of rest my case here, essentially saying that Lean Six Sigma and quality management has huge contributions still to make to many organizations. The good thing is that many of these principles are already now a part of management, the management dictionary, if you will. People understand them and think of them, but not enough. Many of today's captains of industry think that, look, this doesn't require the kind of attention and resources which they were giving in the past, and in that sense they are sort of ignoring a huge resource which is lying out there. We need to leverage this resource. Basically, it's about utilizing our thinking manpower, our thinking abilities in an organization most effectively for the good of the organization. It doesn't cost any money. With almost zero investment, you can save tens of crores of rupees every year additionally, apart from using again these tools and techniques to develop innovative products and services that are far more closer to what customers really want. All of that is possible. So with that, I sort of close my session, but I'm looking forward to any questions. So over back to you, Sushma. Are there any questions?
Sir, chat window. I request participants, if you have any questions, please post in the chat, or you can let me know. I can unmute you and you can. Yeah. So there is one question to discuss.
Okay.
How a Lean Sigma will look like in an education service-based company? From Ankit Bansal.
Okay. Thanks, Ankit, for that question. I've been part of the education sector myself, and I believe just like any other area, there is a lot to be done in the education space also. Let's look at let's look at the K-12 space just as an example. So here again, who are our customers? Young students, our kids, and their parents. Now, understanding what they really want, understanding what drives their satisfaction, that itself is a big piece. And then catering to that. Even today, if I look at my wife as a teacher, and their entire school has been trying to adjust to this COVID times and provide online training to kids in the school. And they've been coming up with innovative ways to do it. And they've been designing lessons, and they've tried to make it as interesting as possible to those students. Now, developing that, understanding kids in a little more detail, developing products around that, getting feedback, whether you're doing well or not, improving your process further, it's quality management. Here again, you can apply Six Sigma tools and techniques.
Thank you, sir. One more question is, why did GE abandon Six Sigma? Yeah, from Radhika Sophi.
I didn't hear the question fully. Why did GE
abandon Six Sigma?
Well, I don't think GE has fully abandoned Six Sigma. GE has, in addition to Six Sigma, added on other areas as well. So if you walk into a GE office, like a Genpact office, for instance, not GE but associated, you will still find people practicing Six Sigma and lean ideas still in many corners of the organization, not fully. And I mean, there are reasons why business leaders have taken a different track. It's their own reasons. The question is, or let's point to the fact that Jack Welch adopted it, and during that time, General Electric really did extremely well. Now, different leaders have taken on a different path. It's given them some benefits. Within the quality management space, there might be Lean and there might be Six Sigma. There might be other approaches coming forward. Today, if you look at it, there are tools and techniques coming in through artificial intelligence, and we'll use more of those. But the basic principles are the same. And I'm sure GE continues to apply some of those basic principles, although they might not call it Lean, or they may not choose to call it Six Sigma. I have no doubt that they apply these tools and techniques in some other form.
Yeah, innovation Six Sigma. So yeah, I think that's the comment from her.
I think small companies haven't learned enough about Six Sigma. They don't even know what it can do, and that's a tragedy. So again, recalling back the need for our country to develop capability, especially in small companies, to deliver great quality, requires these small organizations to understand and apply these tools and techniques. It requires, therefore, from their side, some investment in their people. And again, the good news is that it doesn't cost money. It really doesn't cost money. It only requires commitment and time. And there's so much more that any organization can deliver as a result of this investment and effort.
Thank you, sir. Coming from the fashion business or company, change is constant with fashion. How can we implement Six Sigma in fashion sales organization?
In fashion sales organization, is it?
Yes.
Again, in fashion sales, if you look at it, what do customers want? And customer requirements change year to year, in fact, season to season. To be able to understand that, to be able to develop, projection methods to be able to understand what might be the trends in customer requirements, and then how can you change your cycle times and improve your cycle times to be able to deliver flexibly and rapidly to those changed customer requirements is again another need. I think going forward, there are a huge number of different customer segments, each of which needs to be understood separately. So understanding that, understanding their voice, and translating that into what kind of production needs to be, what kind of products need to be created for these different segments, and how fast can we do it. All of this requires the application of lean tools and Six Sigma tools.
Thank you. From Dr. Question is for beginners, there may be many areas for potential improvement. Which area should the first project in a new company focus on? Any suggestions from your experience?
Well, you know, when you look at what problem to solve, you can think of a 2x2 matrix. Okay, a 2x2 matrix, looking at ease of doing, ease of implementation versus impact, benefit to you. So ease of implementation versus benefit. So you can see 4 quadrants there, and the 2 important quadrants for you is high impact, very easy to implement, and high impact, difficult to implement. Okay, so between these 2, if you are starting off, I'd recommend high impact, easy to implement, which means something like a quick win. So the first time you do it, I strongly recommend a quick win. A quick win is a project which can deliver high impact results, but it's comparatively easier to do. So do that first, gain the confidence, then get on to the high impact, high effort required projects.
Thank you. Next one is, how will it help purely sales organization? Are there any real-time implementation examples to share?
Yeah, I don't know if I shared, but we in ASQ, we once worked with a large lighting company, it's a multinational, and they had carried their entire manufacturing and other part of their organizations through Six Sigma because they believed in Six Sigma. But now they wanted their sales guy to be trained in Six Sigma, and they wanted us to do it because we were an external organization and probably their master black belts were more manufacturing oriented. So we actually facilitated their entire sales team, and there were some, I think 50 of them, through batches of training in in green belt, and then they went on to each sales guy had to do a project. And the project could be something like, person responsible for region in Maharashtra has to increase sales of these products from 4 crores to 6 crores, kind of thing. So they had stretch targets, and the organization was saying, great, now you take on these stretch targets, but you now have the Six Sigma tools and techniques to support you. And it worked for them. It was a successful initiative for them. Just to illustrate that it's equally relevant for marketing and sales guys.
Thank you, sir. Next question is from Anshul Agarwal. How costly it is to implement the Six Sigma in a small to medium-sized manufacturing organization?
Well, it's not very costly. So what do you need to do? Number one, no Six Sigma initiative anywhere will be successful unless the top management are fully convinced about it. So what you need is the owner of the company, the CEO of the company, to spend some time with another organization which has successfully deployed Six Sigma and understand from them as to how they have implemented it, how it has benefited them, and be convinced. And if they want, they can talk to professionals such as us who are already in this field. So that's one, and that doesn't cost money. That only requires commitment of their time. Once they've done that, then they should determine what are their problems, what are their key problems, which they have always been wanting to solve, but they want to solve now. And they say, okay, now let's solve it in the next 6 months. So they determine, okay, they got 8 problems or 9 problems. So all they need to do then is train 8 guys. and make sure that those 8 guys have full commitment and support from management to do whatever. So send these people for training to understand the tools and techniques. It's very difficult for them to learn on their own very fast, so it's better to get them trained, and there are many organizations which provide that training. Let them get trained and tell them to do their projects, and let those projects be supported fully internally, and make sure that those projects are implemented successfully. And they will, complete those projects in a space of 4 or 6 months, reward them, recognize them, tom-tom them, and then select your next round of projects. But once you do that a few times, it becomes a part of the culture, and that's what you want. Really, you'll find that the training might hardly cost anything, maybe a few lakhs, but the savings can come in crores. The return on investment for most Six Sigma projects is like 20 times, 30 times, 40 times.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. I request participants, if you have any more questions, please let us know in the chat. Otherwise, no. So should we wait or shall we close now?
It's fine. I think a good number of questions were there, and I would like to thank all of them for having posed these questions, and thanks for their patience for having been on this program for this long.
Yeah, and on behalf of IIMB and Alumni Office, thank you, sir, for taking your time and presenting us the webinar. I'm sure participants have had a lot of insights from the session. Yeah, we look forward to sessions in the future. Thank you, and thank you all participants. Yeah.
Thank you, Sushma, from IIMB Alumni Association, and thank you to all of you who've been part of this group. Please get in touch with me in case you need any other information. I'll be more than happy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.